Hello, my name is Asher. I hope everyone is doing really well. Yeah, times have been interesting at the moment in New Zealand. Um, COVID is still very much at large. We tend to be getting around, I would say, probably roughly 10 to 20,000 cases every single day, which is just absolutely brutal for a small country like ours. And there's also talk in New Zealand about a new variant. So yeah, things are definitely interesting. But I'm doing good. I'm staying well. Um, and today I've got an important video to do on how the Lord's Recovery, in my opinion, are being punished for their idolatry. This video is really to support Paul's last video on this YouTube page, where he spoke about the curse that the Lord has inflicted on the local churches. And this video will be it'll be sort of a similar video to that, but it'll be in the context of the local churches in New Zealand, where I'm from. And I'll be particularly speaking about some of the cases in the church in Hamilton, which was where I met. But I'll also mention a couple of cases in a couple of other localities too. Some of these cases that I'm going to mention are very heavy, so yeah, this is probably not something for children to be watching. But yeah, I just want to say also that I don't have any personal issues with anyone in this group at all. I'm not out I'm not out to get revenge on anyone or anything like that. And to sort of prove that, I'm going to add my name to the list of cases, and I'll be in terms of myself. I'll be speaking about the family members and also the friends, some friends of mine who passed away while I was in this group. Yeah, so I include my own name to the list as well. And yeah, it's a really difficult topic to talk about, but it is necessary because the Lord hates idolatry. I'll talk about this a bit more too. So I came into the Lord's Recovery at the beginning of 2014. In the whole of 2014, they were pretty much, slowly duping me into the wider group. They were, yeah, they were definitely being very patient with me. 2015, 16, and 17, I was a full member in the church in Hamilton. I lived in the big corporate living in 2016. And then in 2018, 19, and 2020, I was slowly drifting away from the church in Hamilton until I 100% left at the end of 2020. But yeah, to be honest, I was pretty much ready to leave well before then. So that's just a little timeline of my time in the group. And the amount of tragic events that I saw in this group and read about in this group, where I'm from, was just crazy. It was just crazy. I came into this group at about, I was about 20 years old when I came into this group. And before coming into this group, I hadn't really experienced anyone dying before, dying around me before, other than maybe a few very old family members. But I hadn't really seen too many tragedies before, in terms of family and friends passing away. So, like I've said, I lived in the corporate living in 2016, and while I was there, I had a good friend in the group. I had a good friend who wasn't in the group. I used to skate with this guy back in the day. I used to do a bit of skateboarding. And I got the news that this guy had just passed away from a horrific accident. His dad also passed away. And when I heard this, yeah, I was feeling pretty down. I was quite down. So on that same night, I remember very well, I attended a young person's meeting, just for guys, and the meeting was in the corporate living house where I was staying. It was in the sort of in the upstairs lounge, and there were full-time training students. There were some people who were living in the corporate living at this meeting, and there were also some university students. So there was quite a few people. Most of them I knew reasonably well, and the full-time training students were like pretty much in charge of this meeting and pretty much forcing everyone to shout the songs and shout the verses as loud as you can. It was pretty much like a shouting contest. So yeah, the people in charge they see me and I'm not really into it that night. I'm not really shouting that loudly. So they call me out for not shouting loud enough, and I tell them, I'm feeling a little down because my friend passed away from a pretty fatal accident. Um, everyone just, yeah, everyone just pauses, and they're all just looking at each other, back and forth, looking at each other, and yeah, I'm just thinking like, is someone gonna say anything? Like, is someone gonna like comfort me or anything? And then eventually, you won't believe this, someone asks, "Was he a brother?" And what they really were saying, was he in the local church? That's all they really care about. I said, no, no, he wasn't. And then they all pretty much just started looking at each other again, back and forward, and yeah, it was really weird. And then eventually someone just says, out of the blue, "Has anyone got a song number?" And I'm just sitting there thinking, what? Did they just completely sidestep what I just said? Um, yeah, like honestly, I reckon that was one of the most coldest, most heartless moments I've probably ever experienced in my life, probably ever seen in my life. Yeah, honestly, you would never get that from the outside world. Even if you walk in, perhaps maybe if you even walk into a prosperity gospel church, even they would probably be a heck of a lot more empathetic to a situation like that. And really, this all goes back to Witness Lee's superiority complex teachings, and that the only thing that really matters is the local church and building the local church. Nothing else really matters. So yeah, I'm just sitting there, and they're all just before they sing the song, they're just all yelling it out. I am crucified with Christ. Amen. And then yeah, so yeah, I just got up and left. Eventually, I just got up and left, and they're all just watching me leave. Oh, and brother's a little bit upset. Oh wow. Yeah, they didn't. No one came over to me. No one came over to me to ask that I was okay. So yeah, I just go to a friend's house. A friend was living down the road. I go to his house, and he's got some of his friends over. I didn't know any of them except for my friend. And they're all unbelievers too. They're all unbelievers, just worldly unbelievers. I tell them about my situation, and yeah, they took me in, and over the next couple of hours that I was there, they're doing everything they can to make sure that I was okay. Um, yeah, yeah, and again, none of them were believers, just normal worldly people. Most of them I'd never met before. And at the end, my friend he asks, "Do your flatmates know about your situation, Asher?" I'm just thinking, oh, they're definitely going to help me. They're definitely going to help me. They're a great help. Yeah. But honestly, guys, this is kind of funny, but I honestly reckon that a number of just worldly unbelievers out there, a good portion of worldly unbelievers out there are far more Jesus-like than the people in the local church. Majority of the people of the local church. It's kind of funny when you think about it, but yeah, like what has already been mentioned on this channel before, there's a serious lack of natural affection in this cult. Okay, so moving on, the second case I want to talk about happened between 2016 and 2017. And this will really solidify what I've just been talking about. At the end of 2016, I met a guy on the university campus. He was just in one of my classes. We were doing the school projects together, and he said he was a Christian. As soon as he told me he was a Christian, I'm just thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna try and get this guy to come to the meeting, because I hadn't really been able to fully recruit anyone into this group at that time. And the campus workers, they're always reminding me about this, that you haven't really got anyone in, you haven't got any fish in. So I get this guy to come along to a dinner. We start slowly with the dinner to get them warmed up. At this dinner, and also, we also, to this dinner, which was at the campus workers' house, we also invited a young local church couple to help, facilitate in getting this guy to join. At this dinner, so we're all at this dinner and everyone is just sucking up to this friend of mine, telling him how amazing he is, and my friend's telling him, he just said, I just want to be a normal Christian. I don't want to be religious like a lot of those, a lot of the churches out there, which are very religious. So yeah, the local church, they loved that. They were all into that. They thought that, we got a real keeper right here. So my friend sort of starts coming along to the odd thing now and again in the local church. And, we're all trying our best to encourage this guy to come along. Even if, it's just to a dinner, that's okay. It's a start. So the last event he came to, which I can remember, was the full-time graduation ceremony. And he enjoyed it. He did enjoy it. Then after that, it was the semester break. And I sort of just lost contact with this guy until the beginning of the second semester next year, when I just so happened to be in another class with them. I tell the campus worker that I found this guy again, and the campus worker's just like, yeah, get him to come back to my house. I'll give him cake and, and biscuits and stuff, so I'm trying to get this guy to come back and to really get this guy to come to the meetings again. And I even give my number to give his number to the campus worker, and the campus worker's texting this guy, and he's trying to get this guy to come along. And a couple weeks later, this guy unfortunately had to leave uni due to, I think it was like financial reasons or something. So I sort of lost contact with this guy. And then a couple of months later, I just decided to randomly search this guy on Google just to see how, what he might be up to, or if there's any news about him. And I got the shock of my life. I found out that he had passed away. I almost fell off the back of my chair. I just could not believe it. Through a lot of research and getting in touch with some people, I found out that he'd killed himself. It was a suicide by overdose. I go and tell the campus worker about this, about this guy who we had been, talking about quite a lot and trying to get to come along. And my campus worker just like, he's like, he didn't even care. He did not even care. It's like the devil must have been working hard through him. That's pretty much what he said. And then we just did like some, just calling out, oh Lord Jesus, for a few minutes. And then, we just pretty much changed the topic of discussion like nothing had ever happened. That's just an example That's all it is. It's just an example of another classic case of a lack of natural. Okay, so moving on now. Yeah, we'll really start getting into the fatalities in the local church that I saw. So I'm sure some of you will find this interesting too. So to start off, I want to begin by naming three major families in the Lord's recovery in New Zealand. Firstly, we have the McNee family. The husband is the main man in charge of this group in New Zealand. He's pretty much the founder. Without him, the group may have never come to New Zealand, possibly. So you've got him, you've got his wife, and then the next family I want to talk about is the Garrett family. We have the husband. Now, I will name the husband. His name is Hudson Garrett. And I hope I've got this right, but I believe that Hudson's wife is the sister of the founder's wife. Yeah. So, who I just mentioned before. In terms of Hudson, he was an elder in one of the local churches in New Zealand. He played a major part in developing this group in New Zealand and was also heavily involved in the outreaches overseas. He was a very, very, very well-known person. And he also was a campus worker at the Victoria University in Wellington, New Zealand. And the last family I want to mention, I'm not going to name this family, we're just going to call them the third family, out of the deep respect that I had for the father. The father came into this group in the early 1980s. He went to the full-time training in Taiwan in 1986, and he pretty much served in this group really right up until the day he passed away in 2017. A lot of his serving was as a trainer at the full-time training in Hamilton, New Zealand. Yeah, I get the impression that he was really second in charge at the full-time training. And his first wife, again, I hope I've got this right, was the sister of Hudson Garrett. And then his second wife was the widower of Hudson Garrett. I'll talk about that soon. So, yeah, it's difficult to talk about, but I'll try my best. So let's get into the story of what went on here. So without going into too much detail, getting myself into a whole lot of trouble, I'm going to start with the Garrett family. And we've already sort of mentioned this on this channel, just sort of, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this. So this family was living in Wellington, New Zealand, the capital city of New Zealand. And there were 3 generations of this family living in one big house, a 2-story. And, you know, there's Hudson, there's his wife, there's, I think, some of the children, and then there's some of the grandchildren. And one of the daughters, who was a church kid, I definitely can't name her, had been mentally ill for many years. And you sort of have to speculate, with this cult having a history of suppressing natural thoughts of human affection, maybe they had something to do in this woman's development, personal development. But that's absolutely pure speculation. She also purposely stopped taking her mental health medication. So, yeah, you know, there was a lot going on there. But one night in 2015, an argument breaks out among the family. The woman gets a knife and starts stabbing her family members, including a little boy, a little 9-year-old boy. Okay, so there's a lot of screaming going on in the room, and the woman begins to flee. Once she probably realizes that it's looking pretty bad, she starts to flee. As she flees, and she goes next door, opens the neighbor comes, opens the door, and she stabs the neighbor for some reason. No idea why. And in the meantime, the father's, he's pretty much in a really critical condition back at the house, and eventually he does pass away. So this father named Hudson Garrett, a major figure in the Lord's recovery in New Zealand, was killed by his own daughter. Thankfully, all the other people survived the attack. You sort of have to wonder how that little boy is doing today. He'd be maybe 16 today. I'd just be interested to see how he is doing. So I'm not, just to finish on this, I'm not exactly sure what happened to the woman. I think she was charged with murder and eventually deemed as insane and put in a mental health facility. But I'm really not sure on that. So let's continue. So the sister of Hudson, and again, I really hope I'm correct with this, was the wife of the father in the third family. And again, I won't name this guy out of the deep respect that I had for him. So this woman, sister of Hudson, marries into this family and passes away from either brain or breast cancer. I can't remember which one. And the dad, really nice guy, a really amazing guy, suffered for many, many, many years. He attended the same small meeting, that sort of home group meeting that I attended. Again, really, really, really good guy. Completely the opposite of what you would expect from a Lord's Recovery elder. Just a really great guy. I think in the end, I think it was 2017, I'm not sure, but the widower of Hudson Garrett, marries this guy. And within 6 weeks of being with this woman, the poor guy was found dead, slumped back on his computer chair. It was a huge shock. I remember well. The shock around New Zealand was just, in the local churches around New Zealand, was just massive. It was a huge funeral. From memory, they had a live telecast with many watching from Germany, Australia, the US, etc. And I remember it well. And obviously there looks like there's something suspicious going on here. Yeah, so yeah, and then another Lord's Recovery elder. This guy was named Alex. This guy was responsible for creating the full-time training syllabus and sort of fitting it in with New Zealand educational standards, sort of all that governmental stuff. And this guy, he passed away from throat cancer. I think this was in 2015. And this guy suffered for many years. And then there was another man named Bruce. And from memory, he died from a major heart attack in his late 40s. He left behind his wife and children. A man a little bit before my time in the group. He passed away from a rare blood condition. That was really sad. And he was only in his early 40s. He left behind a wife and a really nice son. And then there was a Chinese woman named Jean who was studying at the same university I went to. She was studying to be a teacher, and this was a little bit after my time in the group. She passed away in her, I think it was her late 30s, early 40s. She died from lung cancer. And she left behind a husband, 2 little girls that hadn't even started school yet. And then another Chinese woman in Auckland, which is quite close to where I live, about an hour's drive, hour and a half, passed away from breast cancer, left behind 2 children. And then lastly, a few years before I joined, this is a really bad one. A few years before I joined the group, a young student involved on the Christians on campus, where I'm from, drowned in the sea. The big waves, and he went out. Wasn't really careful, and the waves just, took him. Yeah. So, yeah, that was terrible. So, I think I do have possibly more to speak about in another video I might do on this. But yeah, it is it is really hard doing this video, so I'm not sure. But in terms of the children, I didn't really hear any horrific events happening to the children in this group, and the main reason why I didn't hear this was because I spent most of my time on the college campus, so I never really got that close to young couples with young children. But having said this, I did do a lot of Lord's Table children's meetings, which is sort of like Sunday school meetings. And what I do want to say, and what I did observe, and just from my impression, was that a lot of those children look damaged. Mainly the Western children. The Asian children didn't look too bad, but the Western children looked damaged. Very thin, very pale. Definitely looked malnourished. Malnourished. They did not look like normal children to me, and the parents didn't really look normal either. And what was happening where I'm from? What was happening, from what I can remember, was that there was a lot of low-income Western households getting sucked into this cult. Because the cult, they do a bit of door knocking now and again, and a lot of these really struggling households, maybe some of single mothers who are really doing it tough, and they're looking for hope in life, and they get swooped into this weird group. I've seen it. I've definitely seen it. I took part in it too. Yeah, it's something that does irritate me. So that's probably all I've got to say for now. I have got more, but not sure. I'll do another video on this. But what I can say though is that the Lord is angry with this cult. He hates idolatry. He just hates it. They have put Witness Lee on a pedestal. They have propped him up into a godlike figure. They, in theory, like I said before, are worshipping Witness Lee. Even though they might not be doing it with their mouths, in theory, they are worshipping Witness Lee. Yeah, and it's all done with a cloak on, a mask on, a Jesus mask on. But at the end of the day, like it always has been, it's all about Witness Lee and his ministry and promoting the words of man throughout the globe. Yeah, he's absolutely their idol. And the Lord's Recovery absolutely is being punished for their idol worship. I just want to ask, did the first century Christians worship the Apostle Paul? Of course not. And anyway, I just want to say anyway, the Apostle Paul started the church. He saw Jesus face to face, and he wrote half of the New Testament. So in my view, he can do whatever the heck he likes. But, on the other hand, Witness Lee is really just a proud, arrogant fool. That's all he is. He's a proud, arrogant fool. And it's sad the people I mentioned in this video have suffered and are probably still suffering because of him, because of Witness Lee and his cult. So again, I possibly got more to come on this, not sure, but it does show that this group is not all that it seems. Like the group looks great on the outside. The singing, they do all the singing, and they're always speaking about Jesus all the time, and they're always putting a happy face on at the meetings. But outside the meetings, there are a lot of miserable people in this group who are going through a lot of unnecessary suffering. And I know they would say that the Lord is just testing our faith, like he did with Job. But in reality, he is punishing you guys for your idol worship. And the Lord has been particularly severe on the ones at the top, the elders, he has been particularly severe on the elders in this group. He is definitely not normal what this group is going through and has gone through. Yeah, so that's all for now. I hope I don't freak anyone out too much, but yeah, this is definitely something that does need to be addressed. And yeah, Lord, I'll just finish by saying again that Lord, He is not happy with this group. He is angry with this group. This is a good time to get out of this group and start fresh. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter your position in the group. The Lord doesn't really care as long as you get out of this group and you give your heart to Him, not to some man in His ministry. So thank you and God bless.